Hour 2 Overdrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, Yo-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan. We've got Brian Windhorst later in the hour on the craziness in the NBA. And I think the NBA looked at what the NHL's been doing recently and said, not so fast. Like, we got to keep up, right, with the Mikko Rantanen trade and the JT Miller deal and the Flames-Flyers deal last week. Been a lot of activity going on in the NHL.
And stealth ones, though, too.
Yes.
That's the thing. Like, you know, you see these trades, and I know it's – how about us in the media? These are all Friday night news dumps all of a sudden. Rantanen gets traded. JT Miller gets traded. At least Connie, I mean, you know, we were able to get
Thursday
to it a
night.
little bit.
Yeah,
well,
nice.
Thursday night during the game, though.
During the game, that deal went down.
Making it interesting for everybday, I guess.
Just jamming people up during the game. But you're right. What's with this Friday news dump stuff? Let's get an executive order on that.
It's a pattern.
Cannot happen anymore. Stop making massive trades late in the week or, you know, Friday night after we go off the air.
And how about something else, too? Let's leave a little bit for March because O's going to be sitting at a desk for 8 hours.
Right.
And talking about he'd be chasing Gino around.
Oh, they'll have
and a
mankini. Ready.
I'll have a mankini on, a bright turquoise mankini running around chasing Gino with the way this is going.
Okay. Well, here's the GM of the Calgary Flames joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Here's Craig Conroy. How you doing, Craig?
Good, guys. How are you doing?
We're doing well. Can you try to tell your other GMs in the league to stop making deals on Friday nights? It's not good for our business.
I know. If we don't do it, on Friday and we try to hold it till Monday, though, it's always out there.
Right.
So I think that's what they're thinking. If we just get it done, nobody knows everything's going to happen on a Friday.
Yeah, understandable. And we were kind of joking about the deal that you pulled off on Thursday, that it happened during the Flyers game. The Flyers were playing. You obviously acquired Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee. Take us through that. Like the idea, like were you trying to get it done before puck drop? Were you any thought in waiting until after the game? Like that's always kind of unique. It has happened before. But how kind of difficult is it to get things done before a game or wait until after a game?
Well, we actually kind of talked about it before. We did talk about it before the game, obviously, and then all of a sudden, they just said, hey, we can't get any of our guys here. We need to play our guys. And I said, okay, we're going to play our guys also. And then because Minko had, he had a partial no trade, so, we had to end up talking to Philly and working on that too. So we didn't play him. We spoke to him during the first period, and then when Morgan Frost went down the hall, I talked to Danny and just, I said, hey, I'll pull Pelche also just in case. At this point, we were going to let him play. Now I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. So, which is always hard, and it was uncomfortable for, I felt bad for Pelche because, you're geared up for the game, you come in, and then, you get that kind of news. It's never fun. So I felt he was pretty emotional too. And then I had to kind of keep him in the room until the guys went out because you don't want to. We don't want to do that with. You just couldn't have him go back in because then it's just too emotional for the whole team. So, he stayed the whole game and got to see the guys at the end for sure, though.
Yeah, and in terms of your coach, Ryan Husker through all this, like he's filling a game sheet out. He's trying to figure things out. Like where does he come and play in all this? Like you just referenced the kind of how difficult it is dealing with two different teams and two different games going on. And was he kind of he must have been aware clearly, but how does he handle that kind of news on the fly?
Well, I told him right before the game if you could grab Kuzmenko and just let him know that he's not going to play tonight just because, we had some work to do with him. And then I said, if everything goes through Pelche, probably after the game, I'll talk to Pelche and let him know kind of what's going on. And then, so he knew going in, but then when I came down, he's like, what are you doing down here? I said, I'm just going to pull Peltz after the first just to be safe. He's like, oh boy. Okay. So, he went and did his thing. I said, when's the best time? He said, give it a couple minutes and then we'll grab him. So, he knew, and then he just, and those are the hard things. You wish it always worked out perfectly, but it sure didn't in that case. And I felt bad for the guys involved.
Connie, I mean, you guys were talking about making trades. How difficult is it? You talk about the personal side. I mean, like, to pull guys aside and these deals come together, like, just telling them, like, right before the game, like, it's got to touch you emotionally. And we were joking off the top about the timing of it. Do you get a sense that some or majority of the teams kind of want to get some work done here before this Four Nations thing starts?
Well, it felt like, I think the big thing was once the Randon trade happened, it did feel like I got more calls and more interest. And I think people just said, okay, if we can get it done, and from our point of view, to kind of have the guys come in and be able to play 5 games and then have the break and know what they're coming back to after the break, they're just going to feel that much more comfortable. So it did make a little sense. And I think with Briere, he felt the same way. We've talked about it. I mean, we talked last year at the beginning of this year, months before. So, and then it's weird how sometimes it just really comes together quickly. They wanted to make a deal, and, it worked out for us too. So, it really, in one day, really all came together, even though you've been talking for a long time. But, I do think, and then you see the next day with the Miller, it seemed like the floodgates kind of opened, and I think it is nice to kind of get ahead of it for sure.
So, Connie, I read your comments and saw you on TV talking about, you wanted to give your current team a little bit of a boost as far as, going and getting some players. And you go and get, a 24-year-old and a 25-year-old. These aren't guys that are 30 and kind of near the end of their career. They're still ramping up. What was the thought process in adding these 2 young players to the mix of your group right now?
I think with our age, we got a real good group of veteran guys here with Kadri and, Huberdeau, Backlund, Coleman, and Weeks, and Anderson. And then we've been trying to add that younger group of players. So, I think even at the beginning, we were looking from 22 to 25 would be an area we'd love to get in. So for these 2 guys to come up and available, they really fit into the age group well. And you wanted to give – you wanted to reward the group for playing so hard. I know we weren't picked maybe to be where we are right now, but we thought, hey, if we can get a center, a natural center who's been real good in the face-off, over 50%, which puts him as the best on our team in the face-off, if we could do that, and to get Joel Farabee, who maybe just needed a little bit of a change from Philly. He had 22 goals last year, so, we're hoping he comes in here, we can put him in a good spot and give him an opportunity to, to get back to where he was, and that was kind of the whole logic behind it. And to give up a couple draft picks was, the other part of it. And I think Danny was, everybody. It's always nice when we're both happy when the deal's done, and we both feel like we got something we needed.
Connie, do executives ever rack their brains on the reasoning the other team's willing to move off a player? Because there's got to be something for every team where they're like, there's something the player's doing where they become expendable. So do you ever rack your brains, or you just say, you know what, fresh start, let's make it happen?
Well, for sure. You always wonder why are they getting rid of these young players,
Yes.
And then you just have to go to your scouts and make sure, Huffman, one of our head scouts here, he actually was coaching these guys in Philly, so knows their personality, knows the type of people they are. So that definitely helped, And sometimes it is just a fresh start, a different place, a new environment. But it also, when we talk to the guys, it's a shock. It does take a little time to adjust. But, for us, you're always wondering, oh, I really like that player, but why would they be giving up on him? So you can overthink it sometimes and overcomplicate it in your own mind. But for us, in the end, it just felt like this deal made total sense, and it gives us an opportunity to see them and get to know them, and them to do the same for us.
With Craig Conroy, is it unprofessional to ask that question, or if you ask it, do you just expect they're going to lie to you? Like, in other words, can you not say, hey, why were you, like, let's say you're the Lakers GM, you're like, why are you trading Luka Doncic? Wouldn't you have to ask that? Wouldn't you think so, Craig, or what?
You do think it, yeah. We skirt around it a little bit, is everything okay?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's just, hey, he's fallen out of favor with the coach a little bit, or, we're looking to shake it up. We're looking to free up some cap space. we had cap space, so that the money wasn't an issue for us. And, we just have to go back and say, okay, it might not be working right now for them in Philly, but, we feel like we can give them a real nice opportunity here to play a lot in really important roles and give them a chance to kind of, reset and with our group. And, I think our coach does a great job with that, with this. Ryan Husk has done an amazing job. He brings guys in, makes them feel a part of it. And, it was nice to see Frosty score a goal last night. I was like, oh, okay, you know what? That's it's a good feeling. And then, just want to keep moving forward and bringing them into the group.
Well, we'll just tell you right now, Morgan Frost has a number one fan on this show because Bryan Hayes loves the family and has watched him since he was a kid. Correct, Hayes?
Absolutely. And you know what? When we had the Bryan Hayes Appreciation Night up in Barrie, they were playing the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds, and Morgan was on that team. I think he lit that game up, too. So you guys saw him play. You scouted him back in junior. You guys probably loved him, too. I'm sure of it.
We do
love Morgan Frost.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's got great hands and a nice skill set. You have to get people for what they are. He's not going to be running guys over, but he's competitive, wins draws, and has a really, really high skill set and high hockey IQ for sure.
Connie, talk about your goalie. I mean, how good has Wolf been? Should we be giving him more love for Rookie of the Year?
Absolutely. I mean, I've talked about it here, and with your platform, I would love to. I mean, I think the one thing is, I've mentioned, hey, when you're playing forward defense, there's games where you can get 2 or 3 points and lose, 6-5, but everything's good and still be a minus player, and but you got 3 points and you got 2 of them on the power play. That's one thing about with Dustin. He has to win the games. He doesn't get any kind of empty netters or power play points. And, I think I know he's a little bit older maybe, but definitely feel like he's the big, I mean, if he's probably been one of our MVPs of the year for sure, to say the least. And, I can't say enough about the confidence he gives to the rest of the team, that we feel like every time he's in there, we have a chance to win. I think that's something. I don't know if that works into votes, but if I had a vote, I'd definitely be voting for him. And hopefully you guys can push him if you keep watching him, because he's been excellent.
Absolutely. Lisa in Calgary playing the Flames tomorrow night, chatting with their GM, Craig Conroy. And, you referenced earlier that on the outside, I think a lot of the hockey world was curious, what your team was going to do this year, how competitive they might be. And you guys have either been in a playoff spot or lurking around one all season. And obviously it's gotten to a point where there's no reason to believe that won't continue. So I'm curious, how you've obviously made the one deal. How do you approach the rest of the trade deadline, knowing that your team has played the way it's played and it's built the way it's built?
Yeah, I think, even every day you're trying to figure out, is there a way to make us better? And if there is, again, it's age appropriate a little bit for us. I don't see us going and getting a rental just for the run. But again, that can always change. If the right player came up in the right situation, and when you're at the deadline, if you're in a really good spot and you feel like this one piece could do it, maybe you do it. But right now, I think, you're just talking to teams, finding out, the one thing we have some guys in the American League that have played really well that deserve call-ups, and I just haven't been able to get them up yet. So, you'd still like to see those guys at some point. But you know how it is, coaches, when you're having some success, they're not really changing the lineup that often, to be honest. But, yeah, we're looking to make the team better each and every day.
Well, you guys have, again, had a great run. It's going to be a fun one tomorrow night with the Leafs in town. So enjoy that. Best of luck, and we always appreciate you doing this. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. Yeah, the Leafs in town. It'll be an interesting building tomorrow night.
Yeah, it always is. It always is.
I hope they're not in there cheering. That would make me sick, Connie.
Oh, God, do they cheer.
They show up and they get loud.
It makes me a little sick, too.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hear you.
Yeah.
We don't blame you for that. Try to enjoy yourself. Thanks, Craig.
No, I will. It's always fun. You guys have a great day.
You got it. Craig Conroy joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Count on Maple Toyota for the right winter tire package for your Toyota. Trade in your old tires, buy a new set, and get $40 back. Visit mapletoyota.com. Yeah, it's Leaf fans show up out there, man. They get loud and they chant, and they're They tailgate.
I like the reverse chant where it's like, go Leafs, go, and then it's let's go Oilers.
That was awesome on Saturday night.
It makes for a better environment. And people hate it, and they're like, oh, there's so many Leaf fans.
I wish
here, but
we
at least
had
there's
that
some
in
juice
Toronto.
in the bill.
I wish we had that in Toronto. Like, why is it when the like I get it? It's different populations, different. There's more people. I understand it, but like when the Habs are here,
Right.
I don't really hear "Go Habs, go" chants or oh.
You know what I wish?
Olé,
I wish the
olé,
people
olé.
that drive to Buffalo and that are all spread across the country at these games, like drinking and having a good time, I wish they could be the ones going into a building at home on a Tuesday night, so it would feel like an NHL game.
They can't though. That's the
I get it.
problem.
I know
And
it, but it would be
I'm sure you guys
a completely different environment.
100%, because to be in those buildings, like to feel the electricity, and then go into Scotiabank, and then Austin brought it up the other day. It was like, geez, it would have been nice to have a little bit of pop off that fight and stuff like. The guys are like, hey, we're in other buildings and our fans are like overwhelming and being nuts, and we're in our building and it's like, hey, we're having a night here. I get it. You got to win. You got to do that, and it's corporate. But it just you see other buildings, it pops like it's loud, and people go nuts there.
They do, and it's again, it's unique because the Leafs, they're only out there once, right? It's got an NFL feel to it, an EPL feel. Yeah. You go out there one time a year. It's a special night, and Saturday in particular was different because it is a Saturday night, and it's Matthews and McDavid and Draisaitl and Marner and all the big boys, and Willie scores, and and the Leafs got off to a hot start. That allowed Leaf fans to come alive, right? And then the Oiler fans came pouring back as they started chipping away at that lead. It was just a perfect storm, I think, on Saturday where,
yes.
and I would assume it'll start again tomorrow night. Like, there's going to be a ton of Leaf fans in Calgary tomorrow night. And Conroy knows it. Craig just said it. He's like, we're fully bracing for a lot of Leaf fans, and it's going to be loud. And
isn't
tough.
Vancouver the worst of all the three?
Well, I played there. I
don't know. It's a good question.
As far as the Leaf,
I think Calgary is.
Yeah.
The Leafs penetrating the building.
Like what I said the other day. I think Calgary might be. I think it is.
I don't know. I mean, I've never been on that trip, so I couldn't tell you. I think Vancouver's, there's a lot of ex-Torontonians that live out there, but I don't have an answer for it. I guess we'll find out by Saturday. We'll see what comes of it. And
you love that one out there, though, Hazy, on a Saturday at 4 p.m.
4 p.m. local time on Saturday, Leafs Canucks. It's so obnoxious. It's so ridiculous. Yet we know the reasoning, and I've been saying it for years. Everyone knows the reasoning.
I know, but
Leafs
can't they throw
time.
the Canucks a bone one year or the Oilers and say you're the second half of the doubleheader? Like,
it would be an interesting viewing process. Like, now that I'm older, I don't want them to play late. See, there's the Leafs social, almost 5 p.m. in Edmonton. They know exactly what they're doing. It's great. But when I was, 20, 21, 22, 25, Saturday night, I would have loved the 10 p.m. local. Like, push the Leaf game back, and that would have been amazing.
Right.
But,
dude, now when the final buzzer goes, you click the TV off and you're snoring.
Exactly. I don't want them playing at 1 a.m. I can't do that. I just told you on Sunday I had to be up at 6 in the morning. I can't have that. So I need my considerations to be taken into account, and I'm glad that the NHL is doing that. All right, Brian Windhorst in about 10 minutes. Chris Johnston still to come after 6 p.m. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, Brian Windhorst coming up of ESPN on the Luka Doncic trade. And also, you got De'Aaron Fox. We talked about it last week. He wanted out of Sacramento. He wanted in with the Spurs, and he got his wish.
I would never. You talk about how trades go down. If a player wanted out and goes, I'm not meeting his desired team. Sorry. That's
kind of crazy, huh?
Crazy. Like, oh, yeah, I want to go play with Wemby.
Yeah.
I would say, what's the worst scenario where I can get a reasonable return, and that's where you'll be going?
I know. It's crazy, man. That's it. The power of players. And I credit Fox for openly accepting that he is Robin to Wemby's Batman, and he wanted to get there first, right? Someone was going to do that. Someone was going to play the role, attach themselves to Wembanyama and just ride off into the sunset.
You got to give him credit. He's going to go along for the ride and say maybe something special happens here where there's some kind of dynasty in the next 5 years.
Exactly.
And give him props. But if I'm the GM of Sacramento, I'm just not making it happen.
I hear you.
Their fan base, what did they have, a bit of a run where they made the playoffs?
Have you guys laid eyes on that Wemby?
Oh, of course. He's massive. I mean, the guy's 7'7" or whatever he is.
Yeah, but it's awkward to watch, though.
It's effective, though. He's been in the league for 2 years. Like he is basically everything they said he'd be, and they're fully expecting that he just continues to get better and better and more dominant.
He was giving Giannis the business the other night. Stuffed him a couple times. It was like, okay, maybe this dude's for real.
His presence in the paint, like he doesn't really live there offensively. He shoots. He's kind of a perimeter player at times. He can get to the basket, but his ability to block shots, it's men against boys. Like, it doesn't matter who you are. Giannis, it doesn't matter who you are. You can't get through that guy. Like, if he's got position and he's boxing you out or he's in a position to block you, you're in big, big trouble. And that's just purely scientific. That's science because the guy is so massive.
It's like the teacher swatting away balls from students outside. Like, that's what it looks like.
Exactly what happens. All right, so Windhorst coming up here in a moment. And the Raptors won again. You know, they beat the Clippers. And, you know, you look at Kawhi Leonard. He was in town, and Kawhi didn't do much last night. And the Raptors are winning a bunch of ball games. And Cooper Flagg was unreal over the weekend again in that Tobacco Road battle between Duke and Carolina. And we'll see where he ends up in the end. But
that's a sports destination, like kind of bucket list place. Cameron Indoor to go see a game there, Hayes. I don't know if you've ever been, but
no, I haven't.
It's worth it one time.
High on the list. Absolutely.
It's a Canes game, and then if you can hit that up on a Sunday or something, it's a pretty cool place.
Yeah, we might have to circle that in the old calendar, man. Take a look at that, see what's going on, see what's around down there.
I can give you a banger weekend. Golf both mornings, Canes game at night, Duke basketball game. That's a weekend.
That's electric. Yeah, that's an electric weekend. But yeah, we're still wrapping our heads around this Luka deal and, you know, what it means for the NBA, but also just like pro sports in general. The guy's, he's European, he's an international superstar. He hasn't played in 6 weeks, right? He's been out for 6 weeks. And I do wonder if that factored into the evaluation with the Mavs, that they saw what the team looked like without him. You know, they existed without him for 6 weeks, and that allowed them to kind of uncover, okay, we can survive without him, and we bring in another guy in Anthony Davis, and he plugs in, and life without a player kind of allows you to do that, you know, a little bit. And
yeah, but people don't usually do that with the caliber of player.
No.
It's usually a kind of a secondary piece where you're like, yeah, we can live without that. Let's go get a different secondary piece.
Right. The
With
face of the
this
franchise,
yes.
a little bit different. He was in the NBA Finals literally a year ago. And remember him snapping in the finals, though? Like, he was losing his mind on the refs, on Jason Kidd. And Windhorst, actually, Brian Windhorst had an unbelievable post-game kind of report and analysis of his play. I want to say it was after Game 3. I think the Celtics went up 3-0 in the series. Celtics ended up winning in 5. And Windhorst just completely I wouldn't say uncorked, because it was very reasonable and it was very professional in terms of the way that he broke it down, but he just talked about how poorly he defended, how bad his attitude was, how much he was losing it on refs and coaches, and that's another part of it, right? Like, you talk about the conditioning, but also how he interacts with people, how he interacts with the refs, how he interacts with his coaching staff, his
I think
teammates,
I remember that rant
all
because
that stuff.
insiders don't usually tee off on a guy like that, and I think he went nuclear on him.
He did, man. It was quite something. I think we played it on the air as well, and it was quite something. And Windhorst, I think, even said over the weekend that generally when he has commentary like that about a player, especially a superstar player, he'll hear from someone within the organization defending the player. Maybe not defending the play, you know, but defending the player. Hey, take it easy. Guy's a great guy. He's working hard. He had an off night. I believe he said he didn't hear from anyone in Dallas.
I'm glad you made that comment, Hayes, because we talk about all kinds of athletes on this program, And a lot of people in a lot of organizations have my phone number, and rarely do I ever hear, hey, why'd you say that? We don't make stuff up.
No, exactly.
It is what it is,
They
man.
play the games.
That's
right?
it.
Guys go out and play the games. You react to it. We react to it.
I know. Curious, even like the comments coming out of Vancouver after JT Miller gets traded. Like, it was kind of weird. Like, you know.
Well, it sounded like the players were really emotional and supportive of Miller too, right? Like, kind of loved JT Miller, and man, he's a really good player. He's a really really.
I think
good
the
player.
sentiment was like, I think Myers made the comment. He holds a lot of weight in the locker room, maybe more than anybody I've seen in my career. But I think the follow up to that is probably not a bad idea for him to exit the door.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He gets out, fresh start, you move on, right? And again, we weren't preparing for that in the NBA in terms of this Luka deal on Saturday night and where it goes from here. And we focused a lot on the Dallas side of things. From LA's perspective, it just seems like everyone's like, okay, you have to do that. You had to accept the deal, and you got to bring in Luka, and you got to roll the dice. But I'm curious, like, is there any way this doesn't work out for the Lakers? Like, is there any possible negative spin here for the Lakers? Because we've been trying to wrap our heads around this all afternoon, and to chat about it, among other things, after a crazy weekend in the NBA. We appreciate him finding time for us. Here's NBA Insider with ESPN, Brian Windhorst. Brian, I know you've been talking about this and thinking about this deal ever since it happened. From a Laker perspective, is there any way to spin this negatively? Is there anything you can think of that would make you believe, okay, the Lakers are gambling here with this Luka deal?
For sure they are, because Luka is not signed past next season, and once he's traded, he loses the capability to sign what we call the Supermax contract. And once that is taken away, then the Lakers they have no advantage over any other team in terms of paying the free agent. And so the reason that this was put into the rules is to prevent the Kevin Durant situation that happened to the Thunder. I guess LeBron too, but it really happened after Durant, where you're sort of on your third contract and you basically can get, in the case of Luka, it would have been $100 million more. And so now the Lakers don't have that quote unquote advantage. So when they come to him this summer, Luka's going to be able to pass judgment on whether he wants to be with the Lakers or not. And if he doesn't want to be there, doesn't want to commit, the Lakers could be under a bit of pressure. And I think that's one of the reasons why they didn't trade all their pieces for him, because they had to convince the Mavericks, look, we may have to do some things to build this team up to make sure that Luka's going to re-sign. I would bet on him extending. It's too early to know any different, but they lose the hammer of the Supermax, which is one of the reasons why the Mavericks traded Luka. They didn't want to pay him the Supermax. They didn't want to give him the $350 million. Well, the Lakers can pay him $220 over the same amount. It's literally that much of a difference. So, I wouldn't say that there's a reason not to do it, but there is a level of risk there.
So, Brian, were you just trying to enjoy your weekend and then all hell breaks loose in the middle of the night, or do you want to take us through that timeline?
Yeah, I mean, this time of year, there's not much sleep, and the thing that's different about this is that most of the time, people in my job, we hear about possible trades. We don't always understand all the parameters. We don't always see all four corners. Sometimes we can't confirm that they're real. But it's unusual if we hear about a significant trade that has never crossed our screen. And in this case, that it never crossed anybody's screen. And it happened to also be one of the biggest trades of all time. And so that's what was so remarkable about it, is not so much the gravity of it, which was amazing in itself, but the way it appeared to come out of the clear blue.
What are you hearing from other executives around the league in terms of the way this evidently played out, that the Mavericks reached out to the Lakers and the Lakers alone to orchestrate this deal, and it was never an auction where other teams could be included?
Yeah, so the most important thing you have to know about this is that the sort of the mother decision of all of it is that they decided that they didn't want to pay him the $350. 5 years, $350. Their evaluation was that whatever his temperament, his conditioning, whatever you want to say, they didn't feel like that was a good investment. I'm not necessarily in agreement with that. I'm just telling you the decision that they came to. And so once that decision was made, it guided everything else that they did. That was the true decision. And so the second decision was, if we approach trading him, do we want to trade him to remain competitive, or do we want to start some sort of rebuild? They decided on, we want to trade him to remain competitive and perhaps even still be competitive enough to win the championship this year. So once those two decisions have been made, all of a sudden the number of players, the number of teams that you can go to shrinks way down. And you have to understand that when you approach how they went about it. If they weren't sure what direction they were going to go and they had to see what offers they were going to get before deciding on direction, then an auction made sense. And again, I'm not passing judgment on whether that decision was the correct decision, but that's the decision that they made. And they identified Anthony Davis as a guy that they thought would make it work. And so they only negotiated with the Lakers, and when they were able to get Davis, they didn't need to expand it. And so that's the process they went about. I can understand that process. Again, not necessarily saying I agree with it, but I understand what led them to trade Luka, and I understand why they only want the Lakers. What I don't understand is why they didn't get more stuff from the Lakers. And so I haven't heard a good excuse yet for it. Maybe I will at some point, but I haven't heard one yet.
Brian, the conditioning thing has been brought up so many times. Like, I have to ask, like, what are we talking about? Did this guy just tell the Mavs, like, I don't work out, I don't do that? Or, like, how bad was this?
Well, I think it's being a little overblown that was the only thing. I mean, you guys watch basketball, I assume. You've seen Luka play.
Yeah.
You know, you
He's not the most toned individual I've ever seen.
Right.
No.
But if that's not the most, like, there's things about his game that are problematic. And things, and nobody has more information on Luka than the Mavericks. But I think the conditioning is an issue. Was really an issue this season. They had great momentum coming off of last year, and Luka was being bothered by a knee issue, and he went and played for his national team. And then when they got eliminated and didn't make the Olympics, he rested it, and which was probably what he needed to do. But he came into training camp and he wasn't in the best condition, and he got hurt. He hurt his calf. And while he was out with the calf injury, he got really out of shape. And when he came back, they were so displeased with his condition that they, he had this, I think, finger or wrist injury or something. They shut him down for a while, yes, to rest his hand, but also because they told him to get in shape. He did, and then he re-injured the calf again, probably because he was a little out of shape. So,
Jesus.
But that's not a reason to trade somebody. Like, I think that was a contributing factor. I don't think it was the driving force. I think there's just the whole, there's a balance with star players. Like LeBron. LeBron stresses your organization out in many different ways, okay? And there are times when he will have you say, man, LeBron is causing me to have a bad day if you are in his organization. But he sure as heck has made many people have good years. Okay, because of what he does. For a lot of star players, there's a balance. And with Luka, there's a balance. The Mavericks felt that the balance was out of whack and decided to pull the ripcord, the conditioning only being one factor of it. But there were probably numerous things that played into the final choice.
You just mentioned LeBron. Does this kind of signal for you that the end might be near, or do these two find a way to coexist gracefully for a couple of years? Like, how do you see it playing out?
Well, 1 hour ago, LeBron was named Player of the Week for the 69th time. I don't think the end is near. I think he's got a lot of juice left. Can he still do it like he did in 2014? Of course not. I think he absolutely can contribute to a team, to a competitive team. And if anything, I think this energizes him because I think Luka's ceiling is higher than Anthony Davis's ceiling. He's already proven that. He's proven the most rare thing that you can have in the NBA, in my view, is a player who can change the balance of power in a playoff series, who can take a team that is actually maybe not the better team and flip it on its head. We saw LeBron do that a number of times throughout his career. A number of teams he took to the finals were not the better team in certain series, and he would flip the series on its head. Luka has done that. There are 2 times already in Luka's career where his team entered a series, probably not the better team, that he flipped it and won it, including getting them to the finals last year against Minnesota, where he just was a killer in that series. And he was a killer in that series against Phoenix a couple of years ago when Phoenix was a 60-win, number 1 overall seed, and they took it, including taking Game 7 on the opposing court. That is incredibly, incredibly valuable. And so to me, getting a player like that and having a player like that is incredibly worth it. And the balance that you have it makes it worth it. And so, for years, LeBron was the guy who did that. And now he isn't that player anymore. But they're no longer building around him with the Lakers. The Lakers now have a player to build around, and LeBron can be a supporting piece. And if LeBron's role is to be a high-level supporting piece, he can still play that role on a very high level. So, we'll see what he says about it when he goes on the record. We'll see how he plays. When Luka teamed up with Kyrie Irving, they struggled their first couple of months together. But eventually they obviously got it right. So I think LeBron still has a way he can help Luka and be a really significant part of the league.
With Brian Windhorst of ESPN, how significant is this reporting that has indicated LeBron was not included at all, not involved, was not aware of this? How significant is that in terms of the storytelling of this trade?
I know that it's hard to believe, and I'm not LeBron, so I can't say whether it's true or not. But from what I understand and what I have been told, that is indeed what happened, that he did not know, that Luka did not know, that LeBron did not know, that Anthony Davis did not know, that the agents did not know. The Utah Jazz, who were a part of the trade, found out within the last hour or two what trade they were actually a part of. Now, you can say that that's not true and you don't believe it, and I can't necessarily with 100% certainty promise you that. But the individual people who were involved told me that they did not know. And yes, that is extremely unusual, extremely rare, and that is part of the reason why this trade did not leak. And, you may say, well, why would they do that with LeBron? Well, number one, they didn't want to leak. They had their reasons why they didn't want to leak. And number two, I'm not so sure that's the worst idea not to put it on LeBron's lap because of his connection with Anthony Davis. Mm-hmm. You don't want to make it necessarily where he's choosing whether Anthony Davis stays or goes, whether they were going to give him the choice or not. If he had heard and then not did anything, it would have been like he agreed and he said, go ahead and do it. So I think it was a strategy, and I also think it made some sense, even though I know people are not going to believe it.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty incredible considering, for the better part of 20 years, anything that's happened in the NBA has been about LeBron, or it's felt like it's been about LeBron, competing with LeBron or teaming up with LeBron. And here he is literally directly involved as a Laker and now as a teammate. And after he put on the performance he did at the Garden in New York, and then this news breaks. And from Dallas's perspective, their GM, has been very obviously he's been speaking on it. It was somewhat of an awkward press conference with Jason Kidd up there because Kidd wasn't aware of it. Yet Kidd, I guess has to go along with it. What else is he going to do as the head coach? If they win this year, next year, the year after, do you think that's obviously that'll justify the trade, or do you think trading Luka is just always going to be connected to Nico and to the Mavs moving forward?
Well, infamy is on the table here. Luka plays in the same conference as the Mavericks. And if Luka is regularly pounding the Mavericks' heads in, it's going to be a hard thing to live down. But the Mavericks believe that this team that they've assembled can compete to win the Western Conference this year. And, they are going to have great size, and they are going to be very good on defense. And those are two things that have proven repeatedly over the years to be very valuable in the playoffs. I think there could be another move in there for them as well. They need to sort of bulk up their ball handling now that they've traded Luka. So, it is definitely a fascinating thing. It is, the level of risk here is extraordinarily high. And I got to tell you, I don't know where the win-loss metric of this is, but I will tell you that I have a saying that I've developed in 20 years covering the league, which is when you win the championship, it means never saying you're sorry. Mm-hmm. So if the Mavericks indeed win, then it means never saying you're sorry. But they may, in fact, need to win if they're ever going to live down this potential, catastrophic moment if it goes very poorly.
Oof. What a deal, man. What a weekend. I mean, there were other deals over the weekend completely overshadowed. Okay. Up here, the Raptors are winning, Brian. I know you're aware of that. We're trying to figure out what they're doing here. Are you tanking? I don't think they're going to chase down the play-in, but do you have any ideas, we're a few days away from the trade deadline, what you think Masai and Bobby Webster could be up to?
They're definitely tanking, and they will definitely be losing more. I think we're losing more than they wanted to, and so I think it's a bit of a respite that they've gotten some wins and sort of lifted the mood of everybody. But their team is not structured to win. And the only stuff I've heard about the Raptors is where they would be in as a third team. I don't think it's some sort of breaking news that Bruce Brown's contract is potentially attractive for teams that are looking to maybe move off some money. So I think the Raptors are in one of these situations where they may be receiving calls as the third or fourth team in a deal, where they're basically going to rent out their expiring contracts and flexibility. So right. I would not expect anything that dramatically affects them on the floor this year. I could see them being a facilitator in a significant trade.
Okay, we'll brace for that as the week goes on. I know it's been a crazy 48 hours. We appreciate you doing this. Thank you, Brian.
Take care.
Brian Windhorst of ESPN. Yeah, that's kind of fascinating. Why did they do that? Like he said it, like the first decision they made, they're like, we're not paying this guy $350 million. Like that's what it comes down to. We're just not paying him that kind of money.
Well, when it filters up the chain where it's like this guy doesn't want to work and he strains his calf, and what is he making right now? Like 50,
it's 40, a lot
50,
of money.
Yeah, it's 50 million, 40 million, whatever it is.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's like he blows out his calf because he's out of shape, and then he's so out of shape he can't come back. He hurt his hand, and the only reason they keep him out is because they want him to get in shape, and they're using the hands as an excuse, and then he blows out his calf again because he's out of shape.
Yeah.
Like that filters upwards throughout the organization, and somebody's got to sign off on the check says $350? No way, man.
Yeah. Well,
no way. Yeah.
I think there's the potential for a reckoning in pro sports, but certainly in the NBA, where you look at guys like Joel Embiid. Like, do you think Philly's happy they gave him that money? They must be looking at that saying, and what it just became a formality. Zion Williamson in New Orleans, Kawhi in LA.
Do you think that lunatic out in LA is happy for the return that Kawhi's given him?
Kawhi's given him nothing close to the return. Nothing close. That's just a dead fact. Nothing close to the return on investment from what they've paid him, what New Orleans has paid Zion, what Philly's paid Joel Embiid. And it always becomes this formality, like, well, you got to pay him, you got to keep him.
I hope it continues. Let some other sucker do it. We're not doing it just to say we're doing it.
Maybe there is a change of the guard in the league when you're paying that amount of money for guys, and they're not even professional enough to keep it within the rails. They're eating themselves out of cities. It's ridiculous. To me, you're right. They don't want to make a long-term commitment to a guy because they're not sure if this guy's going to be available or in shape enough to play well. So
that's
crazy.
It. I mean, Luka, again, generally speaking, muscle injuries are usually you're out of shape or it's a specific position. There's specific positions that for whatever reason there's things that put you in tough positions, catchers or goalies, that play a very unique position, up down style, that kind of stuff. But generally speaking, if you just have a calf strain, it's like you're not in shape, man. And if it's costing you 6 weeks and then other injuries are popping up, it's not a good sign, especially coming off the NBA Finals last year.
Maybe they needed Lindy Ruff to toughen them up a little bit.
Possibly they needed some of that. I hear what you're saying. But that's why, again, great move by Luka, showing up middle of the night with a black tracksuit on.
Black
Brilliant.
on black on black.
Brilliant
Hood up,
play.
don't look at the cheeks.
That's a first impression. Man, he looks good. He looks good.
Shows up with a
man.
COVID mask on.
Oh, everything. I'm a little under the weather. I've got a mask on. Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
This guy hasn't hit the gym in 6 weeks. All right. Chris Johnston coming up, and we'll play the Associated Press stuff. It was Babyface and Chapel Roan was the artist right behind him waiting to come in and do the interview. It's so awkward. We'll play it. We'll get into it. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, we sent Al's brother out into the city with a pair of Leaf tickets. You have to guess where he's hiding for your chance to win them. The first clue of Super Bowl week from Al's brother, who's crunching numbers right now in terms of that Super Bowl game. You guys ready to hear from Al's brother?
Go ahead.
Hey, Overdrive fans, happy Monday to you. We got a new set of Leafs tickets to give away. This one to the Leafs and Sharks on March 3rd. You got to find out where I'll be hiding at all week long. Here is your Monday clue to get you started. The area that I'm currently in has got some history. It's been in the hub of the heart of the city for over 200 years.
All right. We sent Al's brother out into the city again with a pair of Leaf tickets, so you got to tune in tomorrow for another clue. And the first caller through on Friday with the correct location wins a pair of tickets to see Leaf Sharks March 3rd, as Al's brother just pointed out. Find Al's brother brought to you by McAlpine Ford in Aurora, our family, the Ford family, and you. Full details at tsn1050.ca. All right. Leafs Flames tomorrow. We'll look ahead to that. Try to get you an update on Mitch Marner's status, Oliver Ekman-Larsson's status. What other trades could happen around the league? We'll get into the JT Miller deal from Friday night, and we're chugging towards the NHL trade deadline, the NBA trade deadline, right? The Jays are still waiting to see. Maybe they're going to move and shake a little bit this week, and it's Super Bowl week as well, so it's go time, man. We are 6 days away from Chiefs, Eagles, and Super Bowl 59. So more on that as we move forward. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.